wanted to talk about is what is it specifically that's interesting to passive talent? Because the reality is, and again, if any of you guys have taken a session into the fourth year on LinkedIn, you know that on the LinkedIn network, about 3% of the talent is about, or 30% of the network is composed of active talent, people who are out there hungry for new jobs, who are upping the requisitions regularly, who are, actively seeking out conversations with recruiters. So, of course, we want to make sure that our job postings are focused on those guys. But the reality is with active talent, if the position's good enough, you're applicants, right? You're going to get those people to apply because they're hungry, they're in the market, they're unemployed. So that's kind of the low-hanging fruit. What we're more concerned about is how can you make sure that your job postings are targeted towards passive talent? So that 70% of the network that's not out there consistently applying jobs, that's not necessarily engaging recruiters, but might be open to a conversation if a recruiter reaches them, or may be more likely to apply to a job if it's written in a way that's really engaging and appeals to their interest or to sort of the long-term potential. So today's conversation is really centered around what can we be doing to create job postings that focus towards passive talent on the network. And the reason this is important beyond just the population and kind of demographics that are split up on LinkedIn. The reason that this is important is they're tied into the fundamentals of how LinkedIn is different than your average job board. Most of you guys who've been in the recruiting world for a while have heard like the phrase post and pray for. And the reason is that when you're going and you're posting a job on any other kind of job board, you're sitting there with your fingers crossed, kind of hoping that the right people come to you, right? You're looking for that active talent. You're waiting for that perfect person to, first of all, in the market, to second of all, be on the job board site that you're posting on, and then third of all, to find your requisition and actually be interested enough to apply to it. So there's a niche there, right? Whereas with LinkedIn, there's an algorithm where you're plugging information in directly into your job posting. That information gets played algorithm and then gets fed out to prospective candidates. So that's both active and passive talent. So as a user who maybe logs into LinkedIn, 3-4 times a week and goes through my newsfeed and checks out what my colleagues are doing and maybe reads Pulse or goes into some groups that are part of and participates in those, whatever a passive candidate is doing, job posting, even though I'm not active in the market, is going to show up in my newsfeed. I'm going to see that constantly. So if it's a good enough opportunity, if it's something that I'm genuinely intrigued by, I'm going to constantly kind of reintroduce to that and kind of, invite to come and apply to it. Best way to say that. So again, the focus here is what is it that's interesting to these people we'll be doing. We actually did a survey a few years back of some users who were passive and tried to garner what was most important to them when they were considering, or if they were to consider new opportunities. So about 30 people said that they want challenging work. Most of us, the reality is, don't want to be bored at work every single day. I certainly don't. You want to come in and you want to do something that's going to keep your mind stimulated, that's going to keep you engaged, that's not going to be mindless sort of repetition. You want something challenging. So how can you make the work that you're portraying in the job requisition that you're posting, put a challenge to the potential candidate? What can we say about this position that's maybe a step above what they're doing currently in terms of skill set, and how can we market that properly to the audience to really make them feel like it's going to be something challenging for them? I think this is very logical, is that, more than half of the people that we talked to said that a top priority for them is a corporate culture that really fits their personality. It's definitely a talent market in the sense that, employees have a lot of opportunities and a lot of chances in front of them to look at different employers and different roles. What organization that you're representing doing to distinguish themselves from a cultural standpoint, and how can you leverage that in the posting that you're putting in order to attract people, not just based on the compensation, not just based on what the responsibilities are or the contributions they're making, but also on what's the culture of the organization like? Is it a work play hard type of place where they're highly competitive but they really reward their top people, or is it a pretty common relaxed culture where people wear jeans to work every day and there's a beer cart on Thursday afternoons, or what essentially that you could use? They have really great benefits. What is it that you know about the organization that appeal to talent from a cultural standpoint? And guys, if you don't know the answers to these questions, that's okay. That's the kind of stuff that you can kind of handle in a kickoff call, right? You're talking with a hiring manager for the first time. you're kind of going through what are the requirements for this job, what does the candidate need in order to qualify for the position. At the same time, you're asking questions about, okay, when you're talking to a potential candidate as a hiring manager, what are things that you're highlighting about the organization that you could attract talent specifically to this role? The second portion, and then the third part, and this is something that was universal across the board. Every single person that we surveyed indicated they're interested in making an impact, which I thought was a little bit surprising. Like, for 100% of people to say that they care enough, that they want to be a driving force behind the success of the organization that they're representing, to me that was a surprising fact. I feel like there are some people who like to just kind of, stay alive and not necessarily put their best foot forward, but to know that the majority or every single person that we talked to in this survey was like, I want to be working in a role where I know I'm making a contribution either to the team that I'm working on or overall success of the organization. I thought that was really, really great. It's something that really is going to feed into the types of things that you put in your job post today. Any questions on those three stats? I mean, again, this is just framework. So much like when we do email sessions or whatever it may be, I give you guys some framework for the types of people you reach out to and how you should be formulating your email messages. The same concept applies here in terms of how you should be formulating your job posts, what you're putting in those in order to attract the right type of talent. Here for any questions. So let me just sit a second. I'll pause for like 10 seconds. You go ahead and put any questions in. So we're going to keep going. So this is how you can kind of also be sure that the algorithm is working in your favor. So beyond just those graphics, what can you be doing with your job posts to make sure that the postings that you're putting up are reaching the right type of talent? We're going through a lot of this in the demonstration as well, but just to kind of cover the basics here for you first, everything I go through here are the areas that are most highly leveraged in the algorithm that I mentioned. So when we're talking about what makes this job post get spread out to candidates, passive candidates on the network, paying attention to these specific fields. Job first and foremost, right? That's going to be heavily weighted, of course, in the people that we reach out to. If you're filling a sales representative role and you put something obscure into the job title field, your chances of it reaching the right type of people that you're looking to speak with. This is the one area of LinkedIn, and I can't think of another portion anywhere where we don't encourage you to be creative. Pretty much anywhere else on the network, whether it's your headline or it's your in-mails or it's even the job description that you're posting, we want you to be creative. We want you to take a unique approach. In job title field, if you guys are taking notes at all in this session, in the job field, this is where we make sure you're pretty much as bland as possible. Whatever generic title is for this requisition that you're working to fill, that's what you want to put in there because that's what's going to have the furthest reach, the best possible pool of talent. So it's a little bit of a ridiculous example, and if you've ever taken any jobs education here at LinkedIn, you may have heard stuff like this, but like if you're looking for a sales representative, but your company is creative and fun and calls it a sales ninja or something like that, don't put sales ninja in the job title field. Sales representative, that's what's going to feed best into the requisition, the algorithm for the requisition, I should say. Postal code, that's fundamental, and you want to make sure, sometimes I see recruiters make the mistake of putting the postal code of maybe the company headquarters or putting your company's postal code in there, something like that. I would, and you should absolutely be just putting the postal code of the location that you're trying to fill this position in. The question all the time regarding the postal code here is, what if you're filling a role in multiple cities, or what if you're filling a role that is web-based, it's a telecommute type position sort of thing. My recommendation there is that you use postal codes for major U.S. cities that you're attracting the best possible talent. So let's say that you were doing a software engineer position, the person will be based anywhere, doesn't matter, but you want to sell software sales or software engineer person. Using obviously the area, using the zip code from the Bay Area where the majority of that talent is located, using from New York potentially, and then switch it up fairly frequently. One of the beautiful things about LinkedIn job posts are that you change these in and out as much as you want to. So let's say you go in and you're filling a position nationwide, it doesn't matter where, every 4 days or every week or every 2 weeks, you're going in and switching up the postal code so the job is being shown to a different level or a different area of talent And once you're doing that, you're not losing any of the work you've done previously. You're not losing any of your applicants. You're just getting exposure in different markets. So through, what about using different levels? So in the job title field, if you were filling like a quality engineer position, and this is actually a senior quality engineer, does it matter whether you put senior or regular quality engineer? This to me is like an industry by industry question. Sometimes those titles they clearly indicate very different roles. Sometimes the titles are a bit arbitrary, right? Sometimes you get people who maybe just been in the industry a little bit longer and they just tag on that senior quality engineer title. That's where like your knowledge of the industry comes into play more. If your quality engineer is a distinctly different job than a quality engineer, then I would definitely make sure to include that. But if it's the same job and you're just talking about seniority, then in that situation, I'd probably still just use the most generic title like quality engineer. No. Then I'm also going to talk about in relation to that the job function field. These are areas that I find a lot of times people who are posting positions on LinkedIn kind of granted. They don't put a ton of thought into these. And these are areas that very heavily play into the algorithm that actually feeds this job out. The each of these, and you can't really see it here, but I'll show you guys once we get into the demonstration, is that you can include up to 3 of each. I can have 3 different industries, and I can have 3 different job functions. The reason behind that, and the reason that you want to make sure that you're trying to do as many as possible, is both the industry and the job function fields are user-generated. So when a candidate creates a profile, they the industry they're in. They choose the job function that they say that they're associated with. So this is highly subjective, right? If I'm in a certain industry, excuse me, if I'm in a certain industry but doing a totally different type of role, like, well, and I'll show you this once we get in the demo. If I'm in an accounting role in the healthcare industry, I may choose healthcare as my industry. I may also choose accounting. I may choose finance. So thinking kind of conceptually about that stuff when you're filling specific roles and thinking about you can choose multiple different industries in order to have the requisition reach out to more broad talent pools is a smart way to go. The field is what we're going to talk about a lot in the next portion here. So job description, this is all where it's really important that you're using sort of some good keywords. This is going to list the requirements for the job. There's a separate area for that, but when you're thinking of like skill-based keywords, things that you want to make sure you find on your candidate profiles, that's where you're making sure you're putting those terms into those job description areas. And I'll show you a little bit more about that in just a moment. We're going to focus on that a lot in the next section. Every job description, what should it include? First, highlighted opportunities for growth. So again, we're thinking about how to address towards a passive market or how to address towards passive candidates. You're talking what does this opportunity bring to the table? What are they going to be able to do long term for this organization or from this role to have an impact both the organization they're working for as well as on their personal careers? On the uniqueness of the company culture. So what is it that makes this organization unique? I already kind of talked about this, some areas you can highlight for this, whether it's the work-life balance or it's the culture and the day of the office or it's benefits that they provide or whatever it may be, or even better, a combination of all of those things. Highlight about the organization that makes it unique in its culture is something that you want to make sure you do. The impact that the role is going to have on the organization. So again, we talked about that 100% of people indicated that this was important to them. So even if you can't talk about it, even if it's an entry-level role and you might be stretching to say that this role is going to have a huge impact on the success of the company, what's this role going to do for the local team? Or what are they expecting out of this person in terms of how they're going to help develop a local market or how they're going to help on a certain project they're working on, whatever it may be. And a minimal focus on a list of requirements. I understand, trust me, coming from a recruiting background myself, there's going to be stuff that you have to make sure you highlight in terms of requirements. You don't want people applying to the job from India if you can only take those applicants. I totally get that. But as the point I'm trying to say here in this last bullet is don't go through every sort of like nice to have in your job description. Use that for your phone screen. The idea is to get this out to as many people as possible, get the visibility as high as possible, and then make your informed decisions as an expert from there who you do or do not want to have conversations with. Well, a pretty bad one. Here's a common job description that might get posted, and in all honesty, just the kind of thing I see all the time on LinkedIn Network. This is from MRI. This is just a generic one that we created, right? And that's what they do wrong here. Normally, I would ask you guys to point it out, but just for the sake of time, I'm going to kind of breeze through some of here. So you can say, like, the staff accountant will be responsible for the processing and payment of all compensation. It goes through all the responsibilities, and then it is a long list of what you'll be responsible for doing. I mean, it's really hard to make accounting sound interesting as it is, but this definitely does a good job making it as boring as humanly possible, right? So if I have a candidate and this job pops up in my newsfeed, unless Tyler Corporation is like a ridiculously well-known good company that I know I work for, the chance of me actually following through and doing anything with this requisition are probably slim to none. So speaking, this is not what you want to do from a best practice standpoint in terms of writing a good job description. But he posts with things in it. So take a second, kind of scan through this, and then share me in the chat what are some things that you like about this job post. What do you think that they're doing here in comparison to the last one? Directly into the chat. You don't have to read the whole thing, just give me some general ideas. So everything, which is great. I mean, that's good to hear. Anything specific that you like? So Compton, I think a great point to bring up here is that there's immediate personalization itself, right? So if I'm addressing it in the second person and I'm saying you're a self-starter who can recognize where processes can be improved and who will take the initiative to improve them. If you're a passive candidate and you open up this job, that's implanting the idea in their head right away. Well, yeah, I am that person. Using more strong communication skills, I do have strong communication skills. It's very subconscious, right? So you're definitely putting it in the mind of the candidate that they're the person that this job's talking about. So you're going to get more traction there. You get growth here as well, which is great as well. We're talking about the impact that the job is going to have on the organization. A small part of it, again, I'm not saying don't directly include responsibilities. It's important that the person knows what they're going to be responsible for the role, positioning it in a way that talks about how they're going to have impact on the organization as a whole, and kind of writing it in an exciting, engaging sort of way. So the question is, anyone from the Bloomington office, I'm sorry, really, there's no disrespect at all. I think that you guys do a great job. I just pulled this because it was a really simple job description. So nothing wrong with this per se. I just think there's room for improvement on it. And trust me, if you're in the Bloomington office and this is your requisition, I hope you take what I put together as an example and you actually use it. You're more than welcome to take it and use it as much as you want to. So look at this job posting. This is for a regional sales manager in Phoenix. I used to live in Phoenix. I used to recruit sales. So this was a position that really kind of hit home to me. I felt like I understood this role pretty well, which is fundamental, I think, in writing a good job description. But I'll just spruce this up a little bit. I wanted to make sure that all of this information was included, all of the stuff that was relevant to this job was included, but that I was writing in a way that was going to be more engaging to a passive candidate. And this is what I came up with. So the provider of EMR Solutions is seeking a sales representative in the heart of beautiful, sunny downtown Phoenix, Arizona, to develop relationships with the city's best physicians and healthcare providers. You think that high-achieving sales professional has been working in the EMR space for at least 3 years and is currently crushing a $1 million quota. You love the EMR selling space and you're looking for a fast-growing company where you can make money and be directly contributing to the success of the organization. So far, we're setting the bar hard for this role. Quotas often exceed $2 million, but the rewards are worth the hard work. A fun culture, tremendous long-term opportunity for individual career growth as you help us grow our presence in Phoenix, and of course, a full compensation plan that shows how much we appreciate your contribution. If the above describes you, let's work together to make your career goals and the goals of our organization come to life. We look forward to hearing from you. And then I tried to fit this in somewhere, but couldn't, so just put it at the end. That degree is required for this role. So this is all the exact same information that you guys got in this particular posting, just reiterated in a more exciting, engaging way in a few paragraphs here. You've got the same keywords associated. I'm including some stuff on the culture. Now, I don't know, first of all, I don't know what company this is for. Second, if I did, I don't know necessarily that it's a fun culture or really honestly that there's tremendous long-term opportunity, but that's generic enough in my opinion that including that stuff is okay. Because if you're getting the point across, that can be interpreted in any number of different ways. So I think that's fine if you're being a little generic in that way. But what do you guys think about this? Do you think this, I mean, I would hope that you guys think this would be more effective, but is there anything you don't like? Is there things that you particularly out of this job description in relation to the other one? It's get in now, right? It's trying to really engage them on a personal level. It feels like I'm writing it towards them. Obviously, job posting, people know that you're not writing on a one-to-one basis. It's not like an email. But at the same time, the same best practices apply. You can really make the candidate feel like you're addressing them, even like subconsciously. That's really a positive effect. So I feel like this format with this engaging style would work across all industries. I mean, I really do. I mean, again, I think the same thing, not to always relate stuff to email, but I think these are very much tied together. Just in email, you have to know your audience, right? You could be writing something in a really casual voice and saying things like $1 million quota. You're addressing, senior level or C-level executive, right? You kind of know the voice that's appropriate for your audience. So when you're going after sales professionals, sort of having that like competitive, eager, sort of like a, I guess, aggressive sort of mentality in your job posting, I think is really effective. But I still think no matter what, noise is important, but having this sort of engaging style is universal for sure. So things like having open-ended questions, using the second person, addressing posts directly to the individual reading it, talking about how you're excited to hear from them and how you want to align your goals with their goals and that type of stuff. I think all of that is really effective. I'm telling you that when I get an initial job description, and again, it's nothing personal against whoever posted this, but this really engaged me a ton. This tells me the very basics I'm required in order to get the job. And if I'm a past candidate, there's nothing here that's really going to pull me in. Now, granted, this was posted on the MRI site. More than likely, if someone's getting this far into the website, they're probably active in the market. But this is the job posting that attracts more of that 70% passive candidate. Okay, that's all I have for you in terms of slides. I'm going to go over into the tool. We have 15 minutes left on the calendar here. I'll only take about 5, maybe 10 at the most. Stuff in the demonstration and make sure to have open Q&A at the end. So you're going to see your screen flash for a second while I transfer over onto my dashboard. If you want to get the chat window back up so you can continue to communicate, take your mouse, go to the top center of your screen, hover bar that brings up some menu options, and then click on the chat icon there. Go, but I'm going to kind of go right into the job stuff. Up here at the top of this is obviously in RPS. You're in Recruiter currently. I go to Jobs. I'll show you some stuff really briefly that we already highlighted on the posted job side. So key question earlier about using senior versus just a standard quality engineer. Again, that totally depends, of course, on whether those jobs are distinctly different. But also do a really nice job of kind of figuring it out by starting to type those terms directly into the job title field. So what nice is, as I start to put this in here, senior quality, let's see if it comes up. It does. So generally speaking, you're in good shape and you're choosing a generic enough title if it's already existing once you start to get one of the pre-existing titles. So I see senior quality engineer here as an existing title. I would just select that, and then I know I'm writing something that feeds into that algorithm really well. The example I gave you, that would be a bad example before. So if I did like Sarah, as I'm doing that, I'm not getting a pop-up with anything on that. And that's because it's not a generic title, so we don't want to do that. Instead, we want to do something like sales representative. So, I mean, this is really the only area of LinkedIn where I would say try to be as native as possible, as generic as possible. The company should automatically pre-populate with your agency or with the MRINetwork or your specific firm's name. So I would leave that because you want this stuff to be tied directly to you and your page and stuff like that. If you put the company you're recruiting for, this is a little bit like, not really controversial, but I think like a little bit ambiguous. when we're working with, when you're a third-party staffing agency? Should I put, the name of the company I'm recruiting for, or should I put my company? Generally speaking, I would try to just put your company name in here. They're going to talk about, obviously, who you're recruiting for, if you're able to do that in the job description itself. Postal code, make sure you're doing something specific to the location that's recruiting, not an overall headquarters or not your location. If you want to be more specific, so if I was recruiting for a job at LinkedIn New York, I could put Empire State Building in here. You can choose level, of course, that's pretty self-explanatory, as well as the experience level. And I mentioned these two fields are pretty essential. So notice again, I can click this out of there, and I can choose up to 3 industries. I get you 3 job functions. So an example I give you further, if I'm recruiting for an accountant for a healthcare organization, I use accounting. I choose and I choose finance services. So conceptually about the role and about the different industries that like my ideal candidate they have selected when they created their profile. And then the function field, same thing. I'm obviously going to choose accounting as one of the functions, but maybe somebody also chose finance as one of theirs, that they were in the accounting world. They also chose analyst. So just conceptually about the job function as well. I would use as many of those 3 as you possibly can. You obviously don't need to stretch it if it doesn't make sense. You don't step just for the sake of doing it. But if you have some options there that work, that makes sense. These are obviously non-required fields. And then you get into your job description. So this is where you're putting that really well-crafted paragraph, that engaging job post. Here's where you're putting those requirements. So in the next portion, this is actually probably where I would put the stuff and the bachelor's degree being required. Maybe you're also going to reiterate 3 to 5 years experience minimum. This is where you're going to reiterate that they have to work for the million plus quote, whatever it may be. The description, this should be pre-populated with your organization part, but not you could take something, right? I would do something about your organization, and you're already talking about the person working for this particular company in the job description field, or you should be. So here's an opportunity in the company description to talk about what are the benefits of working with you. Instead of just going and applying directly to Microsoft or directly to Apple or whoever it may be, why work with a third-party recruiter like yourself? What are you bringing to the table in terms of an advantage? Well, if you work with us, we have a lot of insight in terms of what works well in the interview process. We can streamline you through the interview process. We can help you make sure your resume is in order, make sure that everything's up to their standards. We can give you advice and after interviews, whatever you're bringing from a value standpoint. I'll get some of that here in your company description. You want to make sure that it's associated directly to your profile or whoever you want to be associated with this job. This is might get some ambitious for this, and I always encourage this when I was posting jobs. You want a really ambitious candidates who really want this job, and maybe they go the extra mile and they take the time and frankly they spend the money to send you an email directly. They say, hey, I think you posted this senior quality engineer position. Keep an email. I'm really interested in that role. I think I have the level of experience you're looking for. I didn't just want to submit a resume. I wanted to reach out to you directly, let you know something I'd love to be considered for. That next step is, of course, something that is, desirable, and giving the opportunity for the candidate to do that, I think, is a smart move. Choose how you want those applications to be routed. Do you want to go directly to your website or to an ATS, or can you collect those here in Recruiter and get notified? If possible, this is what I recommend, accumulating them here in Recruiter. The reason being is that it's a slippery slope if you're directing people to your website, because you want to make sure that this link goes directly to the job posting itself. If you don't do that, if you have to, every time someone has to click on a different link to get to the job posting, you're losing probably about a third of the people who might have applied. Every single click is like 1/3 less of those people actually committing and following through to the end. Everything you can here to really try to make sure that you're getting this either directly to the job posting itself, or the easy way out is just accumulate resumes here or those applications here in Recruiter, being able to review them here. So I would actually start to I would actually post this, and now what I want to show you is how you can see if the outcome's working for you. So I go to the Manage Jobs portion. Jeanette, I don't know the answer to that. If you want to send me an email with that question offline, I'm going to put my address here, and I shoot it over to our enterprise services people and see if I can get an answer for you on that. It actually stumps me. Sure. Let's see. Let me go to a quick one. So let's just go farmer one. So let's pretend that I just posted this farm job. Now I'm in the managed jobs portion. What I'm doing is I'm going to come in with the position itself. I'm going to click on this position I posted, and whether or not my algorithm is working properly, and that I'm going to be, and that this job is going to be shared with the type of candidates that I want, is that I'm here to this profile matches tab. So this matches does two things. First of all, it gives you a head start on identifying candidates that you can be reaching out to proactively. So there's obviously two pieces to any strong recruitment strategy. There's the job posting where you're getting people coming to you, and there's the proactive going out, doing searches, sending emails, trying to reach out to candidates that way. So we give you a head start on that. So here's 49, 50 people that we think meet the requirements that you put in place based on what you filled in the job description and stuff like that. So based on the algorithm, these are candidates that we think you'd be interested in. Now, this also, the other purpose of this is as a litmus test to tell whether or not the algorithm is working for you. If I threw it and I'm like, no, I wouldn't be interested in John, wouldn't be interested in Elvin, wouldn't be interested in Agnes, wouldn't be interested in Linus, any of these people, probably means you should go back to the drawing board, make some adjustments, change up the industry, change up the job title a little bit, and you'll notice that even making small changes to the areas, you'll get dramatically different results here in your similar profile. So when I use this as sort of my litmus test, whether or not the algorithm is going to be reaching out towards the types of people that I'm interested in. Does that sound about that? If anything comes up, go ahead and put it in the chat. But guys, that's the majority of what I wanted to show you. So use the similar profiles matches as a way to test. The other mention too, and this is just really briefly impacting, this is like an addition. Jobs out is really useful as well. I see that right now, but normally you would be able to, if this job is active, I would be able to click here and share this job out. When you're doing a job to the LinkedIn network, and when you're actually posting that to your timeline and pushing it out to your network of people, use the same best practices that we just talked about in writing your job description. Don't just put new requisition, filling a senior quality engineer position in San Francisco, must have 5 years of experience, and the range is X amount to X amount. Use the opportunity when you're pushing it out to your network to also do a little bit of a sell. Use the practices that we just talked about, addressing in the second person, doing some open-ended questions. What you can do to try to engage people actively, when you're actually posting that job out to your network, is useful as well. Okay, 6 minutes left. It's a little bit than I intended, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions you guys have if they're associated with jobs. So go ahead and put those in the chat, and I will make sure to bring those up. Question, when you initially create a job, you just start out with your network. That's another one I'm not 100% sure on, Keith. I don't know if it does. I haven't heard that before, but it's possible. And if you've heard another training, I would say that's how accurate. I don't know 100%. I'll follow up with you on that. I'll write that down as kind of a takeaway for me. The answer to your second question is how often should you come back and share it? That really depends. I mean, you have to kind of pay attention to the life cycle of your posting. If you're noticing that you're getting a lot of applies in the first week and then dropping off in the second week, and you're not getting the total number of candidates, you need to really pull somebody that's going to fit the position. Maybe sharing on a more frequent basis. It depends on the number of posts. I mean, you don't should be constantly sharing only jobs. This goes into a larger conversation about best practices surrounding personal branding. You don't be representing yourself on the LinkedIn network as an overall consultant and as a thought leader. And if all you're doing is sharing a job every single day, people are going to start to tune you out. They're not going to pay attention to what you're posting. So really, I wouldn't share more than maybe 2 or 3 jobs a week, on 2 or 3 days. You really have to kind of juggle that with how many job posts you have, what's top priority for you, what do you need to get filled in the next week, that kind of stuff. Good. With the upgrade, how many of these job postings do we get? So these are in addition to your PS license, but that totally depends on what is agreed to with your contract. There's no designated number of job posts. These are in addition, just like you would get, 1 or 5 or 10 RPS seats, where you have, like actual recruiter seats. That's also how many. You also determine how many job posts you want at that time as well. Guys, kind of over. So give me a second just to read through this. A great question, and this is about overall, I think, even just recruiting philosophy, how you should be addressing different opportunities. So the question came through, and just to summarize your question, Constantine, was essentially, you don't want to be overselling or overcommitting to certain potential growth opportunities with a particular role. At the same time, you want the opportunity as one that has growth kind of built into it. So there's a number of ways that you could do that. I think, first of all, if you really want to stay safe, talking about the overall growth of an organization or talking about the growth of an industry is a good to stay removed from particular commitments to grow from a particular role. One of the things that I used to recruit for a position all the time, that they really have some really high potential for growth in the first couple of years that you were with the company. But again, you said, when you're talking to a candidate or when you're positioning the role, you don't sell them on, you're going to get promoted in 2 years, because that's not what happens 100% of the time. So I would talk about how the company itself had a tremendous amount of year-over-year growth. The company had grown 110% over the last 3 years. Or talking about the growth of the industry that it was a part of. It was a startup company. So talking about how the startup company has exploded, software industry has exploded dramatically in the last 10 years or whatever it may be, and growth has generally looked like for people in these positions on their career path. So that a little bit, and then I think it's even okay, like I showed you the example I gave, to be ambiguous in terms of what that growth can look like. So I just said in my job description that I wrote with a fast-growing company. I'm not doing anything specific there. I'm talking about growth and the opportunity necessarily. I'm kind of being a little bit more ambiguous on what that looks like, just to kind of get their attention. For Bruce, does my entire network see the post? So when you post the job, you share that out. Anyone who's within your network will absolutely see that. And the beautiful thing, too, is you start to gain traction and people start to comment on it, or you start to get engagement. So let's find an example of this. I'm actually going to, let me just here. It's not necessarily your first degree connection. But as I scroll through and I look at my network, let me see if I can see an example of somebody. Here's one. So this article, this isn't a job, but the same thing applies. I'm really connected to Eric. He's a first connection for me. I can see that here. But I'm not directly connected to Barbara. She's a second degree connection. But Barbara post is showing up in my news feed. Somebody who was a first degree connection to me liked it. This is the way that your stuff really starts to go viral and you start to get a lot of good applicants. If you're writing stuff that's engaging, stuff that encourages people to interact with it, if you're doing open-ended questions, if you're sharing posts that encourage people to like or comment on them, that stuff gets spread out as much as possible to your network. So I would recommend, even internally, in your offices, anytime you share a job post, send a quick email to everybody on your team and say, just share the job, will you guys all go like it? Because the job gets shared out with their entire networks as well. Question, how do you keep a client company confidential when posting a job? As an example, using a specific company, right? How do you keep them anonymous? So that goes back to kind of what we talked about when you're filling out the job post itself. Please, Maurice, when you're making this post, this should automatically automatically be filled in with your organization, not the company you're recruiting for, but the company that you represent. So whether it's MRI as a whole or whether you're just a branch, it should say that company here in the company field. I leave that as is. And then if you're under contractual obligation not to specifically name the company, then I would just not directly mention them anywhere in the job description portion. Otherwise, there's going to be no way to associate that job directly with the company you're recruiting for. So you don't really worry about that. As long as you're not putting it in the job description, you're in good shape. So if you guys had a hard stop at 1:45, you're actually a minute late to whatever you had next. So feel free to hop off. I will stay on the line for maybe 4 more minutes, answer any other questions, because you guys have been a great group. I did record the session, so I'll make sure to send this out. I will have Joe send it out to the team after all here today. And if you have anybody else you want to go and listen to the recording, they'll be able to do that. As always, don't hesitate to reach out to me directly. Here's my email address. If you guys have questions, I'm always happy to help you and work with you. And yeah, thanks for taking the time here today. Keep asking good questions. Appreciate it. Thanks for being on the call. Always great to have you here. Track for good questions as well.